happy to be here. Good afternoon.
All right, more to learn, more to listen to. And yes, Gwen Morgan said she found it so interesting why more and longer breakout rooms is so important, and just all the other different things that we're learning and all the combination of ideas. Okay, I'm gonna shut up because I really want Rosanna to get in here and have the maximum time. Hi, Rosanna.
Hi, Ken.
Let me tell you more about Rosanna Danilio. She's the founder and lead facilitator of Calgary Mindfulness. She is a longtime community and wellness advocate in our city here and offers meditation training to a whole list of different groups. Let me give you a sense. Children from pre-K to right up to grade 12, as well as professional and amateur athletes. Musicians, we share that in common. I'm not half a singer like you are, Rosanna, but I hold my own a little bit. Teachers, caregivers, frontline workers, and of course, adults of all sorts from a wide variety of organizations all over North America and even into Europe. She's written books. She's the author of a book called End Insomnia Without Drugs, and began a meditation practice, began one as a teenager, and moved into her own teaching of mindfulness to help music students particularly cope with performance anxiety, as well as coach her own son to manage anxiety and depression. So she knows of what she speaks. She's spoken dozens of schools, including schools that focus on Indigenous youth, and even given workshops for the likes of the Girl Guides. So she knows what she's talking about. I'm going to get out of the way so we can finish her off right at the top of the clock when we start our panel. Rosanna, take it away. Welcome.
I'll
You're
talk
going to
quickly.
about personal mindfulness practice and how to engage in them.
Okay, I'd like to begin by thanking the organizers for inviting me and for all of the other speakers sharing their expertise and for everyone here participating today. It is my great honor to be part of the cultural transformation underway, and also I'd like to honor this territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy and the Métis as an act of reconciliation and gratitude. My intention today is to share practical tips for how we can be meditation champions in institutions. Could be the family, school, workplace. And so I'll just ask for the wisdom to, make this short, clear, and helpful to everyone here. This makes up the bulk of my work in this field, is actually teaching beginners how to meditate. I have a question. When do I get in the hut? I'll check in with Ken after on that one. Now, as meditation champions, we want real traction so that we can guide a long-term and profound cultural transformation, a mindful approach to family, to school, to work life. So, that this is more than a superficial fad that doesn't stick. Heartfulness, compassion, wisdom, patience, self-awareness. In transforming all of our cultural institutions with mindfulness, we're in fact nourishing the divine male aspect. And so I did have some, sitting down with some fellow musicians, and they're like, yeah, we feel, as guys, we're not sure how to behave anymore because we can't do much of this or that. This is how to behave. This is the way forward, how to demonstrate, masculine power. It's through manifesting these qualities as leaders in institutions. So that's just my 2 cents when I was thinking about this question I'd had recently. So let me get on to my next slide here. Whoops, hang on. Okay, so this stuff we all know. The skills trained by mindfulness meditation are cornerstones for all healthy professional and personal relationships. And with you guys, I'm preaching to the choir, so I don't need to go into all of the science. Essentially, mindfulness trains social, emotional, and psychological literacy. So let's train it as a core life skill. Let's not add it on as an extra. We've got fine motor skills, large motor skills. Kids got to learn to help around the house. In the workplace, we, interview skills, management skills. So this is one of those core life skills. Let's treat it that way. Managing people, whether they're in your home or workplace or school, it means they are in your care. So that is a new approach to being a leader as well. We are caregivers. This definition of mindfulness that we see, the capacity to be fully present with our actual moment-to-moment experiences, with compassionate attention, without trying to change anything, that's a highly personal and private definition. So when we're sharing mindfulness with the home or any other institution, basically the workplace, we need a public active component that it's necessary, or the private practice just can't get off the ground. So that means in the communications and in the actions of the institution, we, planning, discussing, disciplining, rewarding, mindfulness in action. It has to be visible, it has to be audible, it has to be on authentic display. So we're looking for responsive and not reactive parenting, teaching, managing. Let me move on to the next little slide here. So mindful parenting, teaching, and managing. This is a fundamental relationship skill. And part of our work is knowing the why. Why are we applying mindfulness? It's not a replacement for discipline, workload, management, socializing, counseling, therapy, religion, you name it. So, why are we doing this? And often there are applications that don't go right to the heart of the matter. So then they don't have any real traction. For example, when I'm working with the GATE kids, this pompous acronym, Gifted and Talented Education, these are kids under a lot of pressure to perform to teacher expectations, parent expectations. And so, the parents they hired me to make their kids better test takers because they need better scores on the tests. Well, maybe managing stress under pressure is a benefit of long-term meditation, but we don't get that from a top-down application. So we want to come at mindfulness, applied mindfulness, with a really pure of heart intention. As mindfulness champions, if we're only applying mindfulness to improve behavior or make better workers, well, it's just not going to work. Top-down application meets with endless resistance and no heartful cooperation. So we got to get to the heart of the matter. What are we trying to do in applying mindfulness in the workplace or home? Clearly there's potential benefits, but those are generally way down the road. And so, if we come at this heartfully, what that means is today, more parents, more teachers, more managers simply value work-life balance. They value the investment in the children, the real attention that we can pay, or to your staff, because they're in our care. Let me just see if I should move on to the next one. So, we're looking to nurture healthy, well-adjusted humans, workplaces, families. We want to cultivate healthy, long-term relationships. And the most precious thing we can give to those in our care is the gift of our full presence, our full attention. So what does that mean when we're applying it in action in the family or the workplace? Basically, it's moment-to-moment, open-hearted, non-judgmental, as much as we can, attention so that we can be more responsive and less reactive. These are absolutely fundamental leadership skills, and a mindful environment marks a true investment in this long-term relationship in the healthy psychological, emotional, and social development of ourselves and those within our care. So that is a radically heartful and community-minded approach to institutions. It represents a huge transformation of the way things have been. We want those in our care to be healthy and resilient because that's how we can all give our highest and best to self and community. So this, for this radical worldview to permeate the deep thought of our institutions, you can see how it's such a transformation. There is bound to be endless resistance. So, buckle in for the long ride and bring your sense of humor. Let me move on to next slide. All right. So, number one, we can only give to others what we have given ourselves. And I can't stress the importance of a personal practice. It is the cornerstone of applying mindfulness in the public sphere or in the family. We simply can't be successful champions if we don't practice on our own. And number one is because people can smell top-down BS, especially kids. Most people intuitively know when the talk isn't being walked, and being a true witness to mindfulness in institutions requires this inner work. I recalled when I trained to become a a meditation instructor, I thought, oh, I'm going to learn all the stuff about the brain, all the stuff that people were talking about today. And the first thing we did was sit for 5 days in silent meditation. No eye contact, no writing, no cell phones, no books, no nothing. And so that's where that began. And now I understand why. Without the personal practice, it's not just about being authentic like a method actor. A mindful life is the opposite of being in flight fight, and it is constant work. It is constant repetition, because that's where we are by default. Without our own practice, we just don't have the skills to succeed as a champion. We need regular private practice and also active practice, like little triggers that I'll mention later. So this acronym here, everyone probably knows already. We need to cultivate the ability to stop. So that is to, S stands for stop, T is take a breath, the O is observe, and the P is proceed with self-respect, because you have made a mindful response to a situation. So, we have to train ourselves to do that, to show that to others. And the more you teach, the more you will be challenged, and you must be humble to respond skillfully. Let me talk through some of the other points on this slide. Acknowledge and accept imperfection. So I have taught literally thousands of people, and the suffering created by perfectionism is basically is universal. The root cause is because we feel unworthy of love. And so if we can do this or that perfectly, then we'll finally be worthy of love. So for whatever untruths we've been telling ourselves or hearing for decades, that's how that manifests. It's in children too. In our first workshop yesterday, Noriko spoke about the pulls of isolation and common humanity. And, everyone makes mistakes. So let's greet the mistakes with kindness, appropriate consequences, but without diminishing someone's essential worth. If we're receiving criticism, practice taking the wisdom and leaving behind the shame and blame. So this is accepting our own imperfection is truly acknowledging our common humanity. It is such a way for leaders to reach other people in an organization. Honor the sovereignty of people within our care. Basically, the people we're responsible for, they're more than agents who serve our purpose and, execute our will. So if you'll note the complexity of our own internal dialogue and the relentlessness of it, our own struggle for worth, for purpose, for achievement, let's honor that that's happening within all of us, young and old, low and high, on every totem pole, all day long. So acknowledging and honoring the sovereignty of the people around us is critical for treating others with compassion as we want to be treated. Moving on. All right, so after step one for sharing mindfulness practice institutionally is cultivating a personal practice, and that is no small feat. Lots about that. But let's get on to the other stuff here. We want to be able to adapt mindfulness to the needs of our family and team. And I'm just going to speak briefly to each of these points here. We've got personal practice, so I'll talk a little bit about each of these things. I give lots of workshops to organizations, companies, and my first question when I'm trying to structure things is, tell me about you. What's it like to work for you? What's it like to be part of your group? What do your Girl Guides talk about when they think you're not listening? What do you need? What seeds are you hoping to plant from this workshop? What dynamic within your own family are you looking to improve? So in customizing mindfulness to our institutions, the language, the exercises, the structure, it has to be tailored to secure the buy-in of the participants. For a family, keep seated practices short. Focus on one easier anchor for the first several practices, like sound or gratitude or loving kindness. If you've got teens, they are ready and willing to mock every sacred cow. So your mindfulness practice at home has got to be in doses that can secure success. If you have active meditations at home, you can do it with one anchor like sound or smell. For example, a 30-second silence while taking a walk or before eating. With time, you can offer more difficult anchors and longer practices. For example, for a practice that observes thoughts and emotions, use this to introduce a talking circle where, maybe members of your family can open up. And if we adults are open, children may not open up right away, but it plants an important seed for something that will grow later on. Even if they don't open up right away, they see that you're willing to take risks and be vulnerable. They're learning very important human skills. So how does that apply, adaptation, how does that apply in a formal workplace? Well, high performance achievement language and visualizations for improving conflict management and stress management, that's going to secure way more traction than meditations about like color and energy. So, whether it's for Girl Guides or hockey players, bank executives, or the RCMP, tailor the language and the practices to promote the organization's values and goals. Creativity, fearless collaboration, stress reduction, a growth mindset, mental health and wellness, innovation, respect for tradition, public service, and so on. So lots of different values can really tailor the work to make it effective and meaningful for your team. Active meditations are really important for busy people who say, I just don't have time for this. So, when you're riding the elevator, count your blessings. Right? Or when you're driving your car, commit to being in the present moment and, not giving into road rage. And if you do, back off, take a few deep breaths and continue. While you're washing the dishes, same thing. You can keep your mind focused on the movement of your hands. So picking active meditations is a great way to get resistors who say they don't have enough time to start some kind of practice, because at least they're not wasting time if they do something else. For example, every time you can set a trigger. Every time your phone gives you a notification, pause, put your hand on your belly, and take a deep breath. In the organizational setting, and of course in the family, reminders from leaders are really, really important. So group intentions and challenges that are initiated and shared by leadership, where leaders can be open and vulnerable about their own attempts and failures, really, really helpful. Another question I get is, what meditation's best? Well, it's the kind you actually practice consistently. That's the best one. We must have regularity and consistency. So tailor it to your background, culture, faith. All humans through time have some version of contemplative practice. Make it work for you. For example, meditations upon scripture and its application to our lives are very helpful for faith groups. Loving kindness meditation, where we visualize receiving the unconditional love of God, is also an excellent meditation. Let's move on to my next slide. I'll just cover a few more of these points here. So this is for adapting. It has to fit the organization, or we just can't get the traction. So I've spoke before a little bit about like personal private practice and then public active practice. So to get mindfulness traction in an institution, we must have both. The personal private opportunity to practice, and also this public practice that's endorsed by leaders. So, making your kids sit still for 5 minutes breathing. If you stress them out in other ways, like with inappropriate conduct or anger management, substance abuse, this reveals incongruence in the heart, body, and mind, and it just will backfire. It undermines us as mindfulness champions. As parents, number one is being fully present for our children and not distracted by, stress or phones. And a close second is managing our tempers and applying and enforcing appropriate consequences while keeping it cool. So, we try, we fail, we try again, we apologize and ask for forgiveness and try again, right? Other public practices for the family are, rituals you can implement at home, like talking circles that I'd mentioned, where participants identify our blessings, our worries, and so on, and homework assignments for the next talking circle. So next circle, each person reports in on their experiences without judgment. Outside of the family, for private personal practice, workplaces can offer a private meditation space like the hut. Yay, that's a great idea. So here people can retreat for a few moments of silent practice. A guided practice by internal or external champions is really important as well. So if you can bring in someone to do workshops or have an internal champion to actually lead a guided practice, if not every week, if that's too much, every other week would be the minimum that you want to do it. Other public practices and rituals would be, practice not interrupting each other. Start with short exercises that you can do in the workplace. Let me think of some others here. Commit to single tasking, maybe just for a certain period each day. So notice when you're compelled to answer the phone, do paperwork, and talk to your boss. Notice something like that and pick one thing to work on. Perhaps start meetings with a 30-second period of silence and follow that with a statement of intention. Today we'll review the budget, respecting how strongly we feel about our various priorities and knowing we're going to do our highest and best to reach compromise. So those are small things that managers can do to demonstrate heartful commitment, and they're really, really important. I can't stress how important it is for leaders to share their trials and errors. As the container for manifesting and channeling the true interdependence of a team, even of a large company, it's really, really helpful. And gosh, I know I'm talking quickly, but I want to keep on time here. Let's see what other points I have here. Yeah, we need a sense of humor about this work. So here's my keep it playful slide. Let's see here. Do I have any other notes to cover? Lots of ways to document and share. So in the family, collect progress reports from people. Is this working? What do you want to try? Get input. The more input you get from team members, so it's not applied top down, the more opportunity you provide team members to lead a practice, the more buy-in there is. At the institutional level, like in the workplace, Survey Monkey. So lots of surveys about was this helpful? Which workshop did you like better? How did you feel after this? All of this data is very important to management in prioritizing funds for mental wellness in the workplace. So the more you can provide and document the successes, because there is not failure with this. It is such an important cultural shift. It doesn't fail unless the institutional support is not there. So you will have lots of excellent documentation. And finally, keep it fun, because if this is just something else on everyone's to-do list, forget about it. There's no buy-in. So, keep your sense of humor about it, and be compassionate to others when they are resisting. Identify our own resistance. Maybe it's a fear of not promoting a certain company value in this way, and so you can't secure budgeting. So just be open to our own resistance, and definitely open about trial and error, like your successes and failures in mindfulness practice. So for me personally, a very important mindfulness practice is road rage and driving. So, while I'm driving, I am consciously aware of being a member of this community. We all share this space, and I am actively committed to not getting angry at other drivers who I feel don't share this perspective, that I want everyone to understand that we share the road, so don't be a hog. So, my job driving is to not be the thought police about other drivers. I'm, stay in my own space and respect the decisions of others without taking that personally. So that's an example of an active meditation that even after decades of this work, I'm still doing every day. And that's a long-standing joke with my kids and I. And I think that is it. I'm just going to get over to my last slide. So visit Calgary Mindfulness for zillions of meditation podcasts and videos. You can contact me anytime for help, discussion. I got a free weekly community meditation. We moved online, alas, during the pandemic. We were meeting in Fish Creek or down in one of the South Parks weekly before that. So we'll pick that up again probably this summer. We'll do, at least a couple a month outside, and definitely play it by ear if we have to go back online, but we will meet weekly and it's free. It's a short, excellent way to develop your own personal practice, to have a regular commitment to attend, and also family friendly if you're interested in sharing with your own family. And I guess that is it. Thank you so much for listening to me today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Rosanna. What a terrific toolkit. I have two teenagers at home, a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old. I don't know how many pages of notes I just took because you have offered some really street level, ground level pieces. I've got a 30-minute drive after this, and now you've just completely reframed myself on how I might approach rush hour as well. So for those two things alone, thank you.
Well done.
I want to start with one just quick question, and we don't have a ton of time before we move into the panel, but just something that you said that was interesting to me, and that's the whole notion of implementing these kind of practices in employment, in a job or work situation. Now, what are some of the ways to introduce the whole notion of a personal practice to an employer to implement the importance of mindfulness in that workplace? Because I can imagine from everything I've heard today, there would be actual benefits to, frankly, the bottom line for people to show up this way. What would you say if I have a great boss, but if I walked into her office and said, this is something we should consider, what are some of the points that I would share?
Number one, you need an organizational champion, and usually that comes from within the HR team. HR and mindfulness are well acquainted. It's more than a decade of ideas now, probably at least 6-7 years of research and implementation. So there isn't an HR team in any sizable company that hasn't thought about this. The people I've worked with have reached out to me, like the companies that I've worked with, but I actually haven't reached out broadly. I think that's something I'll consider. So I may have some more information about how to reach companies. But from what I've seen, the best way is to the internal champion sets up a low-cost event, so nobody can complain about it. The internal champion does a lot of promoting and then surveys and promotes to management. Usually the feedback is outstanding. And so because of that, and if the cost is reasonable, there is usually no hesitation about trying to move forward with something like for example, a mindfulness workshop every couple weeks, a guided practice or something like that. So that's first road in is organizational champion, and understanding what employees need. As part of the survey process, you would want to consider needs, backgrounds, mental wellness, particular issues, stress